Another interesting country with respect to population is Nigeria. Nigeria has 218 million people, double the population in Vietnam.
Hi, welcome to the Voice of Vietnam Manufacturing Interview Series. My name is Chris. I'm a sourcing expert that's been living in Vietnam for the last 10 years. Today, allow me to introduce you to
Frank, if your clients find that the Vietnam price is too high, then what alternatives to Vietnam do you recommend?
It's product specific very much. I mean, apparel, the cheapest countries to manufacture apparel is still Bangladesh today. So if you want to have low-cost apparel, there's no other place to go. If your option is to buy low-cost apparel from the large Chinese corporations who are then manufacturing overseas. And this is a growing trend where the Chinese can't produce the low-cost goods in China anymore. So they're taking production spaces or setting up factories in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Africa, Ethiopia as an example. Again, if it's large volume, you can still buy from China, but it won't be made in China. Low cost. Otherwise, if you need more flexibility and lower volumes, it's Bangladesh for sure. Now, the other categories of products, metal, plastics, and so on, and there are options a lot in India. India has a lot to offer. It's actually a larger population than China. And it is at the process of changing in a good way. Where before you couldn't import anything in India, so you were restricted by only what they had available on local materials. Now this has changed. A lot of the talent of India was just leaving India, going overseas. Now they've realized that there's more and more potential within their country, so there are more entrepreneurs setting up decent manufacturing units in India. But it remains a very unique place of sourcing where, you know, quality-wise and reliability is not constant.
Do you have questions about producing in Vietnam? Join one of my live webinars every Wednesday, 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, that include a 20-minute question and answer session. Links are in the description below.
Just looking at pure manpower, China and India are clearly the leaders in terms of having the labor force, and their minimum wages are comparable. I think China's minimum wages is like around 350, whereas India is like around 200. Just looking at labor force, China's 1.5 billion, India's 1.4 billion. Vietnam in comparison is 100 million. And then Bangladesh is 168 million. And then there's Indonesia, 280 million. What do you know about Indonesia?
Well, Indonesia has a lot to offer, natural resources. They have two big hurdles. One is logistics, because it's spread around so many islands. And secondly, the instability of the currency. So we had cases in the past where our customers sourced some products or raw materials from Indonesia, and when it came time to deliver, the suppliers didn't want to send because they could find a buyer for the same item they just produced at a higher price because the currency rate had changed. So, you know, I think it's holding back a lot. But yeah, it should be a destination to go, but somehow it's not doing very well.
Another interesting country with respect to population is Nigeria. Nigeria has 218 million people, double the population in Vietnam. Was Ethiopia on here?
Ethiopia would be
right here. It's right here. 122 million. So, first question is, why do you think China has had some success in Ethiopia but not in Nigeria? And do you know anything about Nigeria?
Yes, it's a very politically insecure place and dangerous place to live. And a lot of the containers never reach the port. So it's security-wise, it costs a lot of money. It's also, you have to look at a bit the difference between black Africa and Ethiopia, which I call it more brown Africa, Egypt, where they have thinner fingers and they're more apt to produce apparel. There are many factors, but definitely Nigeria, in theory, should be a great option, but in reality, the political, the risk factor is too high. So we made a study for people supplying the Red Cross with mosquito nets, who wanted to produce the mosquito nets, actually sew them up in the countries where they were distributing them, which was mostly Africa. And so we made comparison study on different countries in Asia and in Africa, and Nigeria seemed on paper like a good option, but then when we realized the cost and the risks involved, it came back at the bottom of the list.
Is this Madagascar, 29
Yes.
million?
Yes.
So tell us about Madagascar. With you have an office there?
Yes,
people doing
I have
quality
people
control?
doing inspections there. It used to be very difficult to source from Madagascar, again because of political instability, but also because logistic costs were extremely high. Shipping goods out of Madagascar was just not competitive. It has changed a lot now. So freight costs are relatively good, and if you can source the raw materials from neighboring Mauritius, which is mostly knit goods, it can be very interesting. But again, it's similar to Ethiopia. The volumes need to be quite big. Products don't need to change too often. So it's more like continuous productions of jeans or t-shirts or polo shirts or basic items. It's not really good for fashion.
Thanks for listening. Is your business struggling due to delays out of China or quality control issues in India? When is a good time to get on-the-ground advice or factory introductions from an expert in Vietnam? Schedule a one-on-one chat with me, or let's meet for coffee in Ho Chi Minh City. And remember, thoughts are things, and where there's a will, there's a way.